4, 3, 2, 1. Go!
For the most well-known rally raid event in motorsport, there really haven't been that many games based on the Dakar Rally over the last 40-odd years. There appear to be just 5, actually, and one of those is an 8-bit 1988 fever dream where your car has guns and you get from France to Africa by driving under the sea, avoiding giant starfish, lobsters, and many torpedoes. Perhaps adapting the Dakar into a game is as difficult as winning the thing in real life? This would certainly explain Dakar Desert Rally, where I've been zigzagging between enjoying its genuinely immersive moments of brilliance and cursing its bugs, uneven performance, odd design choices, and often unresponsive handling, which have effectively counteracted just about everything it does well. There's no denying Dakar Desert Rally is a massively ambitious and ambitiously massive off-roader, and there are definitely glimpses of the gusto with which developer Saber Porto has approached distilling this grueling event into a digestible and in many ways unique racing game.
1 kilometer, stay on track.
Most impressive is the environment itself. The vast swathes of open desert are a particular highlight. Even though they may sound barren and uninteresting, emerging from twisting valleys or clumps of palm trees into these undulating oceans of sand makes for a racer with a rare sense of scale.
Attention, danger 1.
Even in its heftiest racing trucks, Dakar Desert Rally made me feel puny ascending its mountainous dunes, especially with its neat helicopter camera. And it's in moments like these that Dakar is at its strongest. The time of day effects are lovely, and the dazzling wild weather effects are striking too. They don't really seem to add an overt layer of danger to the racing other than a slight decrease in visibility, but they are wonderfully atmospheric.
You should be more careful. Prepare to turn right. Right to traces. Leave track.
This environment reportedly weighs in at a whopping 20,000 square kilometers, what Saber Porto has described as the biggest racing game open world ever. But unfortunately, there's no way to get a sense of the full scope of it at launch. Disappointingly, free roam driving and custom events are slated to arrive as updates later this year. The updates will be free, but combined with the fact that Saber Porto has also relegated race team customization and even replays to later updates, it all contributes to a feeling this thing just isn't quite finished. Some games are released in early access and some are just released too early.
Off track, danger 3.
It's a problem, for instance, that on Xbox Series X, resolution mode actually looks smoother than performance mode. In resolution mode, the frame rate is pegged at a steady 30 frames per second, and that consistency keeps things looking smooth enough. Performance mode, which apparently sacrifices pixels for frames, looks considerably worse to my naked eye. It may indeed hit 60 frames per second when conditions are right, but it's certainly not locked there, and it flutters around noticeably when the screen is packed with sand-slinging competitors. The resulting unevenness is quite dreadful at times.
Easy, easy, easy. Let's try and finish this in one piece.
I actually even thought the modes might have been mislabeled at first, but no, resolution mode is easily the pick. The growing list of bugs I've encountered certainly doesn't help either. There's minor stuff like the scratches and shattered windscreen on my Iveco Power Star never completely going away regardless of how many times I pay for repairs, or the music still being audible on 0% volume. But the crippling autosave issue I'm currently experiencing on Xbox Series X is much worse. Piles of progress are disappearing after quitting, despite the autosave icon blinking away throughout. Quick Resume is a useful crutch, but losing XP levels, new vehicles, cash and completed rallies, and being reverted to a random mid-race checkpoint from hours and hours ago is enormously frustrating. Equally frustrating is the handling model. Dakar includes a formidable assortment of rally raid machinery representing all the competing vehicle classes, and there's a very good damage model here.
Twisty.
Unfortunately, there's also a vast gulf between what's fun to pilot and what absolutely isn't. Quads are awful to ride, hopelessly sensitive to directional changes. Bikes are a little better, they don't feel quite as delicate, but they're still prone to regular losses of control. Handling for the cars and side-by-sides is a little more tameable than the bikes, but only mildly. The sense of weight while accelerating in a straight line, jumping and taking gentle bends is fine, but anything beyond the slightest bit of oversteer is completely unsalvageable. It's incredibly frustrating to get into a meek drift, but be totally incapable of countersteering out of it. Once you're slightly sideways, you will spin out. Adding some angle to the steering in the tuning menus before a stage can help a little, but it's not a complete fix by any stretch. The trucks, however, feel great. Despite being the biggest and burliest vehicles available, they are far and away the most fun to drive. They're planted and stable despite their height, they feel confident and predictable landing from jumps.
Forward on traces.
They can absorb impacts from opponents without spinning out, and they actually respond to countersteering.
Keep right.
They're not slow either. I'd honestly be happy playing the whole campaign in the trucks alone, and I currently am. If only all my opponents could fit under all the start gates. Unfortunately, one event started me wedged behind an AI opponent who couldn't do so, delaying the race start for 10 minutes, during which time I couldn't pause and restart because I hadn't been handed control yet. Left. 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 Thank you. Forwards, champ. Forwards. He's loving it. You. Come on, just run her over.
Go.
Yes.
1 kilometer.
No.
Forward on traces. Attention. Danger 1.
God damn it.
Bump between rocks.
Of course, I didn't want to simply quit out because of my autosave issues, but when the identical thing happened on the eventual restart, I caved, quit, and restarted, and subsequently lost hours of progress.
Attention, Danger 3, right on track. Danger 3, down.
It should be noted these rolling starts against rivals only occur in Dakar's arcade-inspired sport mode, which features giant glowing waypoints and racing against packs of opponents from the get-go. It isn't really representative of the real Dakar format, but if you can tolerate the surprisingly aggressive AI,
Bump.
it's a better entry point for those who might be intimidated by the orienteering aspects of the higher difficulty levels.
Cap 150, off-road.
Professional mode, for instance, requires us to interpret directions explained in a road book and reach invisible waypoints. This is a satisfying challenge and a different sort of racing to anything I normally play. And there's a lot more to it than simply following the skid marks to reach the ass, like the world's fastest proctologist.
1 kilometer. Attention, approaching speed limit zone 30. Stay on traces.
That said, it is undermined somewhat by the robotic co-driver whose advice isn't as granular as the roadbook directions. His vague keep right, keep left calls can be particularly ambiguous.
Attention, Danger 2, rocks, bump.
I'm also not a fan of Saber Porto's approach to scaling distances. Dakar's map is purportedly a 1:5 scale riff on Saudi Arabia, but the studio has shrunken distances to match. This means a race listed at 70 kilometers is actually only a fifth of that, which is admittedly a fairly harmless quirk. Unfortunately, it also means when your co-driver warns you need to turn left in 2 kilometers, the reality is it's only 400 meters, and you're only seconds away from it, which is jarring and weird. Weird too is the fact that competing in the actual Dakar race is locked behind a third difficulty level, simulation mode, which can only be opened by hitting level 25. That's something that requires many hours of bumbling around in the initial salvo of shorter introductory rallies. I definitely don't get why the titular event is gated like this. For casual players it's essentially absent, and for hardcore racers it's annoyingly out of reach for too long. There actually isn't really a great sense of campaigning as a real rally driver in a specific team here overall. Dakar just tosses a random assortment of vehicles at us and says, go for it. The freedom to drive anything is nice, I guess, but it's also a bit like F1 letting you turn up in a Ferrari one weekend and a McLaren the next. I love the historical cars Sabre Porto has put in too, but unlike the real thing, they don't get their own classic class. This leaves 80s icons competing against modern metal, which is pretty incongruous. Unlocking them is a punish also because it requires completing sport events 5 times, once in each class. Yes, you have to ride a quad. To its credit, Dakar Desert Rally has a fabulous sense of scale and is capable of some great, unique racing, especially when bombing over barren, building-sized sand dunes in a big rig while kicking up huge rooster tails of sand in search of a mysterious navigation marker. It is, however, dramatically undercut by unstable and annoying handling for several of its vehicle classes, its uneven performance mode frame rate, and some significant bugs that can cost you hours of progress. This game needed more time in the service area before being cleared to compete. For more recent verdicts, check out our reviews for FIFA 23 and Session Skate Sim. For everything else, stay on IGN.
Water. Right on track. Danger 2. Water. 1 kilometer. Stay on track. Whoa! Awesome race. We made it.